Hello guys, welcome to this video. Compliment of the season from here. Okay, in the last video we'll discuss for loop and how to work with array in JavaScript. In today's video, we want to look at how we can use for loop to solve some complex questions. If you're thinking of going for interview, you should be expecting these questions we're about to do today. Something like reverse an array, find duplicate elements in an array, then and stuff like that. So in our last video, this is what we did. If you have not watched the previous video, I'll leave the link on the description box below, or you click on the icon above. If you have not subscribed to my channel, you do so you'll be notified when I load new video. This is the channel. In this channel, we'll be doing from the very basic till we get to advanced, where we'll be building products and web applications. Okay, so in today's video, we want to solve some um, interview questions in JavaScript, like reversing an array, finding duplicate element in an array, and some other stuff. If you like this video, don't forget to give a thumb up, a like, and also subscribe to my channel. Turn on the bell icon to get notified when I load new videos. Okay, let's go there. Okay, I'll remove this right away. Okay, let's say in if you going for interview, they might ask you like some of the questions is like find duplicate element in a given array. For instance, okay, let me just leave this particular one. Yeah, let's say given this array like so, we have some duplicate elements like 80 duplicate, 50, 75. Let's add more. So we'll add 5, 35, add 5 again. So we'll have some duplicate element in it. Some of the questions might be for you to check the duplicate element. That's one, to write a JavaScript code that will check the duplicate element, or maybe refers this array as this array starts with 80, 50, 60, and so on. You refers it to start with 5, 35 from the beginning. So we have some other functions in JavaScript like that, like scores dot. We have so many functions here that can do that, right? Okay, like if we want to reverse the array, we can make use of this function reverse, right? But in a typical questions, like interview question, they will not allow you to make use of this function. So they'll ask you to write the function yourself, right? Okay. These functions will automatically reverse an array, right? Okay, that means from 80, 50, we're going to write this function as in we're going to write a JavaScript code that will do what this function does. Okay, and we're going to check for duplicate elements. So this is what we're going to do. Okay, check for duplicate element. Let me bring in comment. Check for duplicate element in a given array. In a given array, that's one. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to sort an array. Write a JavaScript code that will sort an array in ascending order and descending order. Okay, this is what we're going to do. Okay, also we'll write a JavaScript code that will reverse an array, a given array. So this is what we're going to look at. I'm just going to show you a typical example of how you can use for loop to solve this kind of tasks. This is the kind of questions you expect when you're going for interview in programming. So I just have in mind to solve this today with you. So we're just going to see how interesting this will be. So we're just going to tackle it one after the other. Okay, we'll go with it. So the first thing we're going to do is to find duplicate elements in an array. That's the first thing we're going to do now. Okay, what's the idea? Just given this kind of an array, this array of scores, right? We have so many elements. You might not even know how long the array is. It might be array of size 1000 or 1 million. So we're going to write a dynamic code that will do that no matter irrespective of the number or thereabout. So the idea is in normal real life, if we want to check for duplicate element, we're just going to take this element here and compare it with this element here. If they are the same, then we'll always know that if they are equal, as in it's not greater than or less than, we know that it is a duplicate element. So that's just what we're going to do in our code today. So with the help of for loop, we can use for loop. If you have not gone through my video on for loop, I'll drop the link on the description box below, or you click on the eye icon above. So you need to have an idea of for loop. I've done a video on for loop. Video number 9 talks about for loop. Okay, so we're going to use for loop to write check for duplicate. So in for loop, when we discussed for loop before, I said that for loop we have index, we specify the index of each of the array. In array, we start counting from zero. So this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on, right? So each of these index specify um, here. And if we want to access this element at this index, we're just going to know that it's going to be 0, right? Okay. To get a better understanding of this, check out the video. I've done it for loop. Okay. So now when we have this loop, I'll change this indexes to I. Let me just use I, right? And we can have nested for loop since we want to pick two for loops, right? Now, the first thing we'll do is declare this less than this, then the name of the array. This is the reference of this array, which is cost. So cost.length returns the size of this array in a numeric form, that's integer. Like now we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just check it out. If I console log this cost.length, you're going to see it. If I do console.log, if you go to the browser to go and check there, you see 10, right? Right here. Okay, let me zoom this in so you can see well. Okay, good. So, cost.length return the size of this array, and if you count here, this should be 10. Okay. So, since we say I equals to 0, we are referring to the first index of this array, which is 80, right? Then I less than, this is 0 less than 10. This is the condition, right? Then we'll do something and increment it. So now we picked by doing I equals to 0, we've automatically picked the element at index 0, which is 80. This is what it means. I equals to 0. I is referring to the index of this array. So we have automatically accessed 80 here. So now the idea is we need to pick another second element so that we can compare it if it is the same. So for us to do so, we need to have what we call nested for loop, another for loop inside this for loop, right? And I'll change the index to j. You can name it anything, it's just a variable. Okay, in this case, how does this work? I know by now you don't need to get confused if you're not familiar with this. What it means is when this for loop executes, I equals to 0, I less than cost.length, which is 10, then it enters inside and meets another loop, right? Okay. So j equals to 0. In this case, we want this index to start from this 1, right? While this particular one start from 0, which means that by so doing we'll be able to pick 80 at I index 0, while we pick j at index 1 will be this particular one. This will enable us to compare the two. This is how it works. We will have just do j equals to 1, but we want at every point in time let it increment. That's just what we want and what we have in mind to do. So to do that, we're just going to do I plus 1, because we know that at every point in time, now that I is 0 on the first execution, it's going to be 0 plus 1, because at the first execution, I is 0, right? So 0 plus 1 returns 1, right? Which means that j is automatically 1. So j being 1 is at index 50, and we have to relate it to this array we are automatically working on. I just copy it and paste it here, right? So it still scores dot length. So that means this inner for loop is starting from here, right? While the outer for loop is starting from here. So, right? Okay. I think we should console log it so you're going to see it and you will understand very well. So let me console log the I, console.log scores bracket I. This is how to access the real index, right? So if you console log this to console.logs scores dot this time around j, right inside, you're going to see that it will access each of the individual element, but it's going to be plenty. You can say this, right? This is I. Let me just write something. I can say at every time I say outer loop, and here I can have inner loop, right? Okay, so you can see it and know what we are doing. Inner loop, right? So you can see outer loop the first time executes 80 and inner loop execute 50. This is just what I want to point out so you know where it's starting from. So the inner loop is starting from 50 while the outer loop is starting from 80, right? Okay. I think that seems interesting. So by so doing, by accessing scores j and scores I, we have automatically have access to individual uh, to the element at index 0 and to the element at index 1. So this make it pretty cool for us to compare it and check it out. And another thing I want you to understand is um, when this first for loop executes, right? Remember that when the first for loop execute, it will go inside and meet the inner for loop. And when we're discussing about for loop, we say that until this condition turns to false before this for loop will stop executing. That means this first for loop will execute, it will meet the second for loop. So this second for loop will execute like how many times from here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It will execute 9 times while this execute once, right? Okay, if we still console log this again, you go and see it here. Just watch. The first for loop, outer loop executes 1. The inner for loop executes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then the outer for loop execute the second time. This will execute 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just like that. You should understand that by now. Okay. I just wanted to point it out. Okay. So since we have that now, since we have access to each of the elements in the array, there's nothing again we can do than to check and compare. So to find out the duplicate of this element in our array, we need to use if statement to check if they are the same or they are not. So we can say if you have not watched the video on if statement, I'll drop a link on the description box below. Then you go and check it out because I have a comprehensive video on if statement in JavaScript. So we can just say if scores I, remember scores I at the first execution is referring to this, right? Second execution is referring to this. Is equals to scores at j. Remember, when I is equals to 0, right, j is equals to 1, and j 1 will be 50, 0 is 80. Then when I is equals to 1, j will be equals to 0 because I, 1 plus 1 is going to give us 2, right? I believe it makes sense, right? Okay. So by checking this, if scores I is equals to scores j, if they are equal, that means they are duplicate element. So we can print it out. We can say console.log duplicate element. Let's write it this way. Duplicate element. And let's just call it duplicate. Yeah, like so. Okay, duplicate. So the duplicate is going to be in J, right? Okay, good. So if it's just as simple as this, it's just as simple as this. So we don't have any other thing to do on this. So with this, it's going to do this for all, right? As long as this for loop is executing, it's going to check this for us. So if we check it out on the browser straight away, you can see duplicate elements are, we have we have 80, 55. Let's go and check. We have 80 here and we have 80 here. We have 50 here and we have 50 here and we have 5, right? Even though we add other numbers like 100, we have 70 again, have 35, it's still going to check for us, right? Anyone that is duplicate. So this is as simple as it is. These questions always come up on interview very well, right? If you are going for interview, this question is one of the interview questions for some companies before they can take you as a programmer. Okay, this is for finding duplicate array using JavaScript, right? So you can see the usefulness of for loop. So to detect duplicate element, you can write this as a function or thereabout. Okay, the next thing we want to look at is how to sort an array. Okay, in descending order and ascending order. Okay, let's go there. I'll just comment out this straight away. Okay, if you have any question, don't forget to drop a comment on the comment section below. And if you have any specific problem you want us to tackle for you or do video for you, you can drop comments on the description on the comment section below. Okay, let's go to sort, how to sort an array. As we have said, there's a sort function in JavaScript. If we call this array, it's called dot sort. Sorry, it's called dot sort. This function can sort the array and return the sorted array, but if you go for an interview question, you will not be allowed to use any sort of functions. Instead, you should be the one to write functions yourself. So this is just what we're going to write just now for it to sort the array for us. If you have not subscribed to my channel, do so to be notified when I load new videos. Okay, let's go straight away to sort the array. It's likely the same idea. How do we sort array? Is we can sort array by checking once this array to be in either ascending order or descending order. So we'll just check all the smallest number come first, followed by how big they are. Okay, so that's just the idea behind the stuff. So it's likely the same thing. Just pick this number, and check which one is greater than which one. So let's dive in and do it straight away. So we can use for loop straight away. If you have not watched the video on for loop, don't forget to go back there. So I can just give it I, right? Okay, you can name it anything. It's just a variable. Okay, I then I refer to scores, which is our array. This is the array we are dealing with, scores, right? You can define your own. Okay, scores dot length. Remember, dot length return the size of the array, right? Scores dot length will return the number size of the array. And we need to pick the second element to check them. So we still have the nested for loop for again, then we have J inside there. So what we're going to likely do is to look through all the array here as well, J plus plus. So what we're going to do inside here is we're going to check which of the element is greater. So we can use if statement if scores high is greater than, right, greater than scores j. In this case, since we have handled this and this, we are now checking if 80, which is at index 0, which is I, is greater than 50, which is at index 1, which is j. Okay, remember we're likely going to do inside the j, we're going to do I plus 1. Don't forget that, because that's what makes it works, right? Just going to do I plus 1. So if scores dot I is greater than scores dot j, right? The idea is we're going to remove scores.i since it is greater than scores.j, right? We're going to remove it and keep it somewhere, right? And shift this to the position we just removed the 80, right? Then return this 80 back to the position of 50, right? Is it sounding somehow? Okay, let's see how we're going to do that. I repeat again. The idea of what we're going to do is when we check if 80 is greater than 50, we're going to remove 80 and keep it somewhere. Maybe it can be a store. Then move 50 to the position of 80. Then move 80 back from the store to the position of 50. Okay, sounding somehow, right? It's quite simple. We're going to do that now. So if scores I is greater than scores j, scores I is 80 at the initial execution and score j is 50 at the initial execution. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to declare a store. Let's have a store up there where we can store this element, right? Okay, so we can just have let store equals to 0 at the initial execution. Okay, so store is equals to 0, right? Okay, nothing is there. Now, we're going to say if scores I is greater than scores j, what are we going to do? We're going to remove scores I. So we'll have store, which we declare is equal to scores I, which is the 80 now. We will remove it. We'll just automatically remove it and store it here, right? Okay. Now, we're going to move um, scores j, which is 50, to the place of scores I, which is 80. So this is just how we're going to do it. We're going to do scores I is equals to scores j, right? Scores j, right? because see what we'll just doing straight away. Let me bring this thing down here so you can see it very well, right? Okay, I'll drop it here for now. See what we're just doing. Now, scores I at the initial execution when I is equals to 0, score I refers to 80. Then when j plus 1, that's I plus 1, which is I plus 1 at initial I is 0, 0 plus 1, that's 1. That means j is standing here. Okay, when j is 1 is standing here. So we are checking scores I, which is 80. If scores I 80 is greater than scores j, which is 50, what we are doing is we're removing scores I, which is 80. We'll store it in a temporal variable, right? Okay. Then the position of scores I, which is 80, is empty. So what we are doing, we are shifting scores j, which is 50, which is laser, to scores I position, right? That's what we are doing. So now we have to transfer this store, whatever in the store, to scores J, right? Okay. What we are doing now is we are doing scores J now. Bracket J is equal to store right way. Okay. This is as simple as this. So we have moved this to the store and we are going with immediate effect. Okay, so this is what we're going to do now. We're just going to go straight to the browser and go and test this out. Let's go to the browser straight away. Okay, if we refresh this, you're not seeing anything straight away. So what we're going to do, we'll have to console log the initial array now. So we'll see how it goes. We're going to do console.log and sports straight away. Okay, so we have this. If we go back, you're going to see that the array has been sorted from ascending order. That's from the smallest to the biggest accordingly. This is what we have before. We have 80, 50, 60, 70, 75, 80, 50. So now the array has been sorted to 5, 5, 35, 35, 50, and so on. Okay, so that's how we sort array in this using JavaScript for loop and thereabout. Okay, okay. So the next one that is remaining is reverse an array. What do you think? Can I leave it? Okay, can you do it? Okay, let me give you some times to do it. Okay, to reverse an array, we just need to get the array, then call it. I'll just comment out this so that it will not interfere with what we're going to do. We're still going to use this array. Let me bring it down here. Right, good. So it's still using for loop, right? If you still check, we have, if you check scores like so dot refers, we have the function that can reverse an array if you put in the array. But in a whole interview question, you will not be allowed to use the function. Rather, you have to write your own function. So for loop is quite a very good one that we can use to do this. Okay, so this is scores as usual. So what we're going to do inside this for loop, this time around you might be thinking is nested for loop, but that's not the case in this particular problem. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're just going to, instead of displaying this array in this way, we're going to display it from this other side, right? Okay, so the way we're going to achieve that is scores.length, right? Let's first of all declare the new array. So let new array, we're going to store a new array that will just reverse. So let I equals to scores length. That's just exactly what we need to do, right? So we're going to say I equals to scores dot length automatically. Instead of being here, we're going to grab this here. This is a different problem and we're going to tackle it in a different way. Scores dot length, right? Okay, I equals to scores dot length minus 1. We're just going to add minus 1. Anytime you add minus 1 to an array, it's referring to the last element of the array, right? The last element in this case. So minus 1. Next thing we're going to do is I greater than 0. I greater or equals to 0, right? This is the logic we're going to use. Greater or equal to 0, right? Okay. So we're going to, instead of adding, we're going to decrease it, right? The logic we just did here is as long as I is equals to the maximum number of this array, scores dot length return 10, return the size, total size of this array, which is 10. So we are saying I in this case is 10, right? Minus 1. Minus 1, why we add it so that it will not throw out of bound error. If we didn't add minus 1, it will want to go above the size of the array. That's why we put minus 1. Then we are now saying as long as I, which is 10, is greater or equals to 0, as long as it is greater or equals to 0, right, it should keep on minusing this. That means shifting from this side, in this case, from the ending side of the array. So as long as we do that, we can now populate a new array like so. New array dot push. In the video of our array, I said something about this. New array dot push. So we are pushing what? Scores dot I. Okay. Remember, I is starting from what? From 10. So it's starting from this side. So this is just as simple as this. Okay, so we can now console log a new array by saying console.log new array, like so. Okay, if we navigate to the browser straight away and refresh it now. Okay, I think something, we're missing something, new array. Okay, we are having some stuff done. Okay, let's check what's the problem, right? Okay, well, first of all, say I equals to scores dot length, which is the size of the array minus 1. Mhm. I greater or equals to 0, right? Greater or equals to 0. Then I decreases, right? Then we have scores dot length I, right? Okay, I think should have late here. Okay, let's go and check it back. I think it's because of this. I'm using what we call live server to view it. So if you don't have the live server, you can install it there. Sometimes live server might have this problem. So let me just get the path of this index HTML file straight away and paste it up here while we close this one. Let's see. Okay, let's see whether it goes. Good. We have the array, right? We have it fine and good. And the array now, it was starting from 80, 50, 60, 70. So what we're supposed to expect, we're supposed to expect it to start from 35, 70, 100, 5. So 35, 70, 100, 5. So we have automatically reversed the array using this code, right? If you use live server when you are typing, it's going to bring up that because it executes each time code changes. So if that give you the same issue, just copy the path of this file, right? The index.html file, then paste it on the browser, then terminate the live server. Okay, so this is how to refresh this array. I believe with this you can attempt any questions pertaining to this aspect in your interview question, right? Okay, that's it. If you have not subscribed to my channel, do so you'll be notified when I load new videos on this channel. Subscribe, like, and share for your friends. See you in the next video.